Music therapy can be applied in all sorts of areas in addition to or in tandem with other therapies. It can also stand alone in a really beautiful capacity. I worked with many age groups at the hospital and other places where I was working on bonding. This isn't something we really focus on in our physical therapy, occupational, and speech world, but music therapy can really focus on is family bonding and social bonding. At the hospital, I worked with many teenagers and their families who were struggling with chronic pain because of sickle cell. We would jam out on electric guitars together, and we would...
Like the whole family?
Me, oftentimes it was the teenager, and as a parent. And then we would just grab whatever instruments they wanted to. A lot of them were really drawn to the electric guitar or the keyboard.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Unmasked. Today is a really cool episode. We have a very unique guest. Her name is Alyssa, and she is a board-certified music therapist. And we don't really get to talk to a lot of music therapists here. I mean, here we have occupational therapy, speech therapy, feeding therapy, and physical therapy. But Alyssa kind of is down this different path that focuses on music therapy. And what she does is she works with those other therapists and uses her skills alongside those therapist skills to help kids reach their goals and milestones. So I'm going to just turn the time over to her real quick, and she'll kind of explain a little bit about what music therapy is and what her credentials are for doing that.
Welcome, sure. Alyssa.
Thank you. Music therapy is a really amazing health profession. We use music as our tool to help all sorts of individuals in every part of their lives to achieve their goals. So I'm not using music to try and perform for a concert or to help people play instruments better, although those can be side effects. My goal is maybe to help a kid who's struggling to walk to learn how to walk better and using music to help achieve that, or learning speech skills, or maybe that's family bonding, or maybe that's emotional support and social support. So really amazing things can come by using music as a tool. It does require licensure. So I'm a board certified music therapist nationally. I did a bachelor's in music therapy and then did 1,200 hours of clinical experience in a variety of settings. And then I took a board exam. And then every state has their own licensure as well. So I'm state licensed here in Utah and really excited to explore this topic with all of you.
So what school did you go to, and for like how many years roughly?
I went to Utah State.
Okay.
And it's a 4-year degree. I did 5 because I wanted to go to medical school for a really long time. Mm-hmm. So I actually did a lot of other classes in addition and stretched it out. But typically a 4-year degree. Or if you do a bachelor's in something else, you can get a master's equivalency.
So right here in Utah. And then when you became like a board certified music therapist, then you're thinking, hey, I want to work with kids. How did you get to that point?
I've always worked with kids. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. And I did lots of jobs growing up where I was focused on working with kids, whether it was swim lessons or I was Disney princess for birthday parties. Working with kids is always a big passion. I worked with kids in several of my clinical experiences, including in Franklin County Medical Center with the Disabilities Agency, Primary Children's Hospital, and then later in Cleveland at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. And I loved it. Loved it so much. There's something magical about a kid being willing to try anything that adults just struggle with sometimes. We get in our heads and we're like, I'm not good at that. But a kid will say, I've never tried that before and I want to. And it's really incredible to just watch them explore. And it gives me a lot of courage to explore new things by engaging with them.
We love that. We work with kids, but you also work with all age groups and even adults. Do you have any stories maybe about kids or others that you've worked with where you're like, it kind of cemented in that you're a music therapist and this is what you want to do for your career?
Like I said, I was prepping to go to medical school for a really long time. Yeah. I knew that I liked music. I knew that I really liked the medical field. And music therapy was this cool blend. But I felt like, I need to go to more school to really make the difference that I want. While I was at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital, I worked really closely with a lot of physicians and a lot of interdisciplinary groups and found that I was actually making an important impact as a music therapist that I wouldn't be able to make as a physician. I was in the room with patients, interacting with them daily or weekly while they were at the hospital, and working on amazing goals and building family relationships that a physician didn't have time for. A physician was in and out working on really specific medical goals, but they weren't able to sit down and be like, how's your relationship with your mom? Or how are you doing emotionally? How are you progressing towards this goal? Are you having fun today? Just really simple things that I could focus on and help make their experience even magical in a really hard setting. And I watched that over and over again, whether that was with a parent or an infant or somewhere in between with our teens or our little kids. Is just really amazing. And so I'm feeling more motivated now to explore what music therapy has to offer, realizing I can make a difference there.
Well, and it's interesting that you're like first thinking, I'm going to go into medical school, and then you end up in music therapy, and you're like, wow, this is something that gives me like more face time, right, with the clients. Mm-hmm. And you may not always get that. I know most of my friends that are doctors, they're in and out real quick with each of their patients. And music therapy, like you get to connect more with people.
I really value that connection.
Yeah.
It's been incredible.
Yeah, and you don't always get that as a physician. And I bet you if more physicians knew about what you do, they'd be like, maybe I should have gone into music therapy.
He might, honestly.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit about your background too, because obviously you have to have some kind of like musical talent, right, to be a music therapist. So did you like grow up playing instruments? Like, has music always been a huge part of your life? And then what was that transition like of, I love music, I'm like engulfed in music, and now how can I use this to help kids? What was that kind of like?
As a kid, I really loved music. 6-year-old me wrote a book called I Am a Rock Star. And it was all about, I wake up singing, I go to bed singing, I was born singing. When I'm an adult, I'll be singing all the time. It was just kind of my thing. And I did lots of choir. Once I got to the end of high school and had done lots of piano, lots of cello, lots of choir, I was kind of sick of it, actually. I was planning on going to college and didn't know what I wanted to do, but I kept telling myself, I am not studying music. I am not going into the medical field. I think, I'm not going to school in Utah. I was from Wyoming. And those were just like all the predictable things that I felt like people were expecting of me, and I didn't want to fall into that.
And you ended up doing all three.
I ended up doing it anyways. Yeah, all three.
Right.
Here I am. But actually, I'm realizing I think I didn't want to do those things because they were a big part of me. I wanted to
kind of explore more. Yeah.
And be unexpected, I guess. But I found out about the music therapy program when I was just touring schools with my friends. And I was like, actually, that sounds kind of cool. What even is that? Auditions were in a month. And I was like, I'm going to just try. So I had never played guitar before. I learned a couple chords. For How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? It's an old children's song. And, I had to learn like a pop song on the piano and do an operatic piece on voice just to demonstrate a variety of things that I could do. And it magically got in and felt like it was the path of the most light at the time. I went for it. So I had a lot of musical experience, but honestly, a lot of the training that I feel like I use every day within therapy sessions comes from my schooling and being able to play guitar and support someone else in their musical experience, or create a bass on the drums or maybe on the piano so that they feel comfortable exploring themselves.
So it's less about your performance and more about how your performance can uplift whoever you're working with.
Yes, because I want them to be creating music. That's where the therapy happens. We can listen to music on our own anytime. And yes, that can be part of my sessions. But my philosophy is that our best therapy and music therapy sessions is happening when the patient is involved in the music creation process.
They're making music.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So when you sit down with a patient or with a family or even another medical professional, how do you explain what music therapy can do?
I think by telling stories and being able to give examples. I'd love to share some stories with all of you. I think that people's experiences can give a better picture than I can really give words to, for sure. You had mentioned the importance of working, or asked earlier about working along with PTs and OTs and speech therapists, which I did a lot of when I was at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. And that was incredible. And one reason that I reached out to Ability Innovations was, wow, I love working with these specialties. My most incredible or really impactful experience was with a patient with cancer who was really struggling to walk. Her cancer was in her cerebellum and down her spinal cord. And she couldn't move from a chair to her bed, out of her wheelchair. She couldn't walk on her own. And while her prognosis was poor and she was going to pass away, in fact, she passed away this last week, we knew as therapists that she could have a better quality of life than she was having at the time. So this is a 10-year-old girl. She's from Kuwait. She's Arabic. She was speaking a little bit of English, just enough to get by. And she was super sassy, did not want to do any exercise, but knew that she could grow and do hard things. So me and a physical therapist combined, we teamed up and we focused on her physical therapy goals of being able to self-ambulate and get up and walk on her own, being able to do daily tasks and participate in activities that she loved, like doing her makeup. I created musical experiences to support that. So instead of just walking and practicing that over and over again, we belly danced because that was part of her culture. Yes, it was really important to her. And it was able to help her practice weight shifting from foot to foot. It was able to help her practice using or letting go of something with her arms and trusting her body to stand on its own because she had to use her arms to dance. And it was just fun and something she could do at home completely on her own. We did many things with her, but it was really incredible to watch music enable her to use her physical therapy to its full capacity and really take advantage of the skills that her physical therapist was teaching her.
Well, and to have where you're this integral part of the team too, that's helping not just facilitate, but also create. And not just music either, but create a motivation and a pathway for her to be able to reach those goals that she had, even in physical therapy. That's really cool. Are there any other stories that you would share with us? Obviously,
physical therapy, music therapy can be applied in all sorts of areas in addition to or in tandem with other therapies. It can also stand alone in a really beautiful capacity. I worked with many age groups at the hospital and other places where I was working on bonding. This isn't something we really focus on in our physical therapy, occupational, and speech world, but music therapy can really focus on is family bonding and social bonding. At the hospital, I worked with many teenagers and their families who were struggling with chronic pain because of sickle cell. And we would jam out on electric guitars together. And we were...
the whole family?
Me. Oftentimes it was the teenager, sometimes a parent. Okay. And then we would just grab whatever instruments they wanted to. A lot of them were really drawn to the electric guitar or the keyboard or MIDI boards, like things on GarageBand. Mm-hmm. And we would just create fun beats together. And when you're making music like that and not needing to communicate with words, it brings this bonding experience that you can't have any other way. But it's really simple and it's approachable and you're being goofy and vulnerable without feeling like you need to step too far out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, to get people together like that, that's kind of fun. I've never played Rock Band or anything on the Xbox or any of those, but I've always wanted to. And I think that the people that I've seen do that, they get together as friends. It's okay to just play by yourself, but GarageBand is meant to have a whole band, right? Totally. And so that's cool. That's a neat experience.
I think sometimes we get intimidated about music. We're like, oh, I've never done it before and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not musically inclined. That's the best part about music therapy is that you don't need to be. I have that and I'm going to bring my skills to you and I'm going to make it successful for you. And part of the therapy is trying something totally new. It's a mindfulness skill, being willing to try something new and accept whatever comes of it. And that's an incredibly therapeutic experience too. But you don't have to have any musical experience or even know that you're really interested in music for music therapy to be successful.
I wanted to also ask too about, it sounds like you've helped a lot of kids that are either like they're really sick and need help in that way, or they are going through some kind of rehabilitative process. What about helping kids who maybe have autism or like sensory issues? How can music therapy kind of assist them in those areas?
Totally. Autism can look so different for every individual. That's one of the magical things about music, is it can be so different for every individual too. There's an opportunity that we have in music, like I said, to socially connect without having to do so in a traditional way. So if a kid with autism is really struggling with social skills, they can have amazing social experiences without needing to talk to someone traditionally or use all the right words or make perfect eye contact. And they can communicate a message that they wouldn't be able to get across normally. But it also helps them to glean those skills and transfer them to those normal social skills if that's something that they're working on. For example, maybe we're in a group of kiddos and we have some with autism, some with other needs, or maybe some normal functioning kids, and we're working on that social skill. Then we can do a couple different things. We offer them opportunities to create music together, choose the instruments that they're going to use, and then interact in a conversation. Maybe you make a beat and you respond with the same beat. We go back and forth. We have kind of a drumming conversation. Maybe we're taking turns just supporting each other with a beat on drums. And then one kid gets to go up and play on the piano, whatever he wants. And the rest of us are just supporting and listening. And then we interchange and we trade places from listener to leader. And it's just a really incredible listening and response experience where you get to interact in a whole new way. As far as sensory experiences go, being able to control your sensory environment and do so even when there's a little bit of chaos can be a really important skill. And music can feel really chaotic sometimes. So it can really help you increase your distress tolerance. If a kiddo is really struggling with sensory needs, being able to start with low sensory input in a musical environment and increase that and practice distress tolerance or be able to do so within their own control can be something really empowering within a music environment.
I had a music therapist once that came to our program when I was in school for occupational therapy, and they talked about how they would use music for things like calming activities, and they would do like chanting, or they would, do like a slower beat. And they said sometimes, the kids come in and they're doing this like more frequent beat, and then by the end of the session, they were slowing them down, and they would see like their energy levels just kind of lull out. Mm-hmm. And they're like, and it's so amazing to see how music can help that sensory experience. Our bodies are just attuned to it, right?
Totally. Yeah, we're very rhythmic beings, just by the way we talk, walk, eat, our heartbeat, everything. It's really incredible to tune up to that.
I love to hear so much more about that. And if we were to have like music therapy going at Ability Innovations, you were saying that we could have families that are just doing sessions individually with you, and then also you could join into sessions that have like the physical therapy or the speech therapy. Can you talk a little bit more about what that would look like?
Absolutely. It can be very impactful both ways. If I were doing individual sessions, I would be assessing the child based on their needs, talking to the parent, making sure that we are evaluating the kid for what their strengths and their needs are, and then working on those within a music environment. And I can work on all sorts of goals. If they're already receiving physical, speech, and occupational or feeding therapy here, and they want to work on other goals like social skills or emotional regulation or family bonding or even just self-expression, we can work on those in individual sessions and have a lot of success in tailoring that to them. If we're wanting to help motivate their goals within PT, OT, speech, not just to work on those goals, which I can do in individual sessions, but to really enhance their experience within the physical therapy session or with other therapists, then working in tandem can be really amazing. Maybe we're motivating the kid to look at physical, speech, feeding, or occupational therapy in a whole new way. For example, with one kid at the hospital, I was working with a physical therapist again. He struggled with left side weakness and had a really hard time just doing his exercises. He hated having to move in an intentional way that used his left side. But we could trick him when he was playing music. A lot of instruments require bilateral movement. And so were we tricking him? He knew what we were doing. But he was so engaged in the musical process that all of a sudden he was doing his exercises on his own. He had instruments in both hands and he was playing hard with both sides. He was squatting down, he was running around, and it didn't take extra prompting. The music did the prompting itself. So it can be a really successful experience in tandem with the physical or other therapist to be able to combine and motivate the child or help them see and receive their therapy in a new light.
That really solidifies kind of what we do here, huh? Like we really focus on like play-based therapy, and we know that like when kids love what they're doing and they enjoy what they're doing, they're going to want to continue to do those activities. That it is a therapy activity at the end of the day, but they don't necessarily know that because they're enjoying it and it's just fun for them. And they see results and progress a lot faster.
And they're more likely to do it at home.
Exactly.
Because it's a more approachable activity. It's amazing.
And I know several kids that they've kind of explored even their musical talents, and then something just comes out and they're like, wow, we got to get this kid like a keyboard, or we got to get this kid a cello, because they learn something and they're like, just super focused on it and super engaged in it. And it's something that they wouldn't have known otherwise unless they're exposed to that. And so I think for a lot of kids, like having some kind of outlet like that, or having some kind of exploration time where they're like, hey, I always drum on the wall or on a table or something, but if you put drumsticks in my hand, it's a completely different game, and they might really go far with that. Okay, so Alyssa, we have this idea, right, that we want to bring music therapy into what we do here. We think that it could be such a great program and another addition to these families. And if there's families that are listening to this and they're like, wow, this sounds amazing, we would like to be able to kind of gauge the interest that's out there first and see how many families actually are interested in this. And as they get to know you and get to see maybe even what we do with music therapy in the clinic, and it gets more interest, we want to see how many people would be really interested in utilizing music therapy with their child. So tell us a little bit, like you were planning on coming in and maybe trying out some sessions and showing parents, like bringing instruments even, right?
Totally.
Tell us about that.
I would love to offer a day where families can come in and try music therapy for free, whether they're doing that on their own or in tandem with their normal scheduled therapy sessions. I would love for parents to be able to see if it's a good fit for them, for their family, and for their kid. Maybe we're going into a speech therapy session and we're using music to prompt this child's normal speech patterns and help them work on those goals. Or maybe we're going into a room, we're working with parent and child together to create a really amazing family bonding experience. And that can be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. But I'd love to have families just come try it out. And then they can contact me with any questions that they have or concerns that they have.
That sounds great. And we're going to send out a survey, and it's going to go out to all of our families to see if they're interested in music therapy, and also being able to meet with you and see kind of what you do and how it might best work for their kid. So if you're interested, if you're listening to this at home and you're like, yeah, this sounds amazing, or if you get to listen to this afterward and you're like, oh, I didn't fully get that information or all of that understanding, then we will link the survey in the show notes of this episode. And we'll also put your contact information so we can get this out there so that families know how valuable this therapy is.
I also think at the end of the day, too, the reason we go through all this trouble and offer all these services and try and get as many of these partners together is because we want your kids and the kids that come to our clinics to receive the best care they can. to get results as fast as they can, to gain those superpowers that they need now to take on those challenges for tomorrow. That's really why Nick created Ability Innovations. He was working in the school districts and he saw a need that there needed to be more therapy outside of the school districts and more options for parents to take their kids to. And that's why we exist. So we highly encourage you to take advantage of all of the resources we offer, because we do this for your kids. We do this to help them reach their goals and their milestones and ultimately thrive in the world that they live in.
Even the name Ability Innovations is about being innovative, finding new ways to reach kids and help them bridge those gaps in their milestones or things like that. And music therapy is such a great way to do that as well. And so we hope that people can take advantage of this, but we're grateful that you would come on the show too, and that we could get to know you and what you do. And hopefully we can get as many families as possible to take advantage of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and close off today's episode. Special thanks to Alyssa for joining us. All of the related contact information for her will be found in our show notes below, as well as the survey that Nick mentioned, where we encourage you to take that survey and see if maybe this is something you would be interested in doing here at Ability Innovations. Again, Therapy Unmasked is a free podcast that we provide to you that's brought to you by abilityinnovations.com. Head on over to abilityinnovations.com and check out all of our free resources on there. We have blogs, we have articles, we have lots of free handouts that you can look through. We also offer a lot of really cool courses. We have a really cool one coming up all about potty training. So keep an eye out for that one. It's going to be about helping neurodivergent kids overcome potty training and things like that. So we're really excited for that. So keep an eye out for that one. You can go to therapy-unmasked.com or abilityinnovations.com to find all of these resources. Special thanks to our guests today, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.